Hello, welcome to my Compound Life. I'm your host, Jonathan. Nice to see you again. Okay, so thanks for coming on with me on a ride. I'm gonna go somewhere. I'm gonna head to the gym. Now it's the 11th of November 2025 morning. Bitcoin price is around 105,000. Okay, so let's go. So 105,000, not too bad. Definitely some recovery, but yet not a lot. Let me be careful when I come out from here. Okay. Yeah, so I think from yesterday's video we spoke about, there will be some incoming catalysts that can potentially bring Bitcoin back to higher price or reach another all-time high. So that's why I think over the weekend, especially after Trump did the announcement of the 2,000 US dollars stimulus checks, some government meeting in the US specifically to discuss about the reopening of the US government. I think definitely that caused a lot of market cause a lot of happiness in the market. So that's why Bitcoin, crypto, I think a lot of crypto shitcoins pumped a little bit, right? So the price action was definitely good over the weekend on Sunday and Monday, especially after the market open. We can definitely see some improvement. I wouldn't be able to say it's a good gain. Definitely see some improvement. However, the improvement cannot be sustained. As you can see, Bitcoin is currently retracing between 107,000 to 105,000. And it does seem Bitcoin has a resistance at around 107,000 to 108,000, right? So as soon as it hits 107,500 US dollars earlier, boop, came back down. Okay. I think there's a lot of buying the rumor, sell the news, where people heard about the stimulus checks coming in, the potential of US government opening up. So that's why there's been a lot of buying. But at the same time, do have that anticipation that there's still a bunch of people, a bunch of OGs, a bunch of whales that still follows the Bitcoin 4-year cycle rhythms, right? Essentially what that means, we are now at the Bitcoin 4-year cycle end, right? Where usually at the end of the Bitcoin cycle, there would be a cycle peak, right? All-time high for Bitcoin, right? And a lot of people do believe that Bitcoin about a month and a half ago, that was right before the 10th of October, when Bitcoin hit the price of 126,000. A lot of people assume Bitcoin that's actually the double top, right? Because I think a month before the 10th of October, Bitcoin peaked at around 120, and then a month later, Bitcoin hit another 126,000 USDs. So the assumption was, great, for an asset, we achieve a double top, and a lot of people, OG whales, they started their sell-off, right? Because they do have the assumption that, Bitcoin peaked already, right? But certainly there are others that believe that 4-year cycle are gone, right? So that's why for us, right, for me to tell you that have the assumption that, Bitcoin, it still follows a 4-year cycle, right? In that case, now it's still a good time to take profit, right? When we take profit, we certainly do not take all the profit, right? And totally get out of Bitcoin. However, have the anticipation that Bitcoin follows the macro cycle, right? It follows the liquidity, right? And we all know that liquidity are coming back into the market, right? What are the liquidity factors, right? We mentioned earlier the $2,000 check from Trump that has been confirmed, right? US government reopening soon. I think there's a near 1 trillion, or I think 950 or 960 billion US dollars, right, from the government's checking account, right? That money will be readily be deployable as soon as Trump signed the agreement to reopen up US government. There's also the third thing will be the rate cut. That's definitely coming. We do not know whether it would be a 25 or 50 basis point cut yet, but that would definitely come sometime in December. US Fed, Jerome Powell, confirmed that there will be quantitative easing coming. That will be announced in December. So quantitative tightening will stop in 1st of December, followed by quantitative easing starting from January next year, right? So a lot of these are actually pointing the fact that liquidity will be coming back into the market. So that's why, to a certain extent, although I've been talking about exiting Bitcoin, right? But save some, just so that, if liquidity does come back, right? We can still cash out with some good gains, right? So have that in your mind. You never have to always exit at the top, right? Or go all in at the bottom. You're never able to time this, right? You're never able to time the market. However, what you can do, and that's the most sensible thing that I've learned, this is my third Bitcoin cycle, right? This something that I've learned is always take profit, right? Whenever you have the opportunity to take profit, do so, right? Whenever you have the opportunity to buy in at the low, because the fact that you've taken some profit, you have some cash lying around, right? And that's where you buy in. That's where you buy back in from the low and then sell the high again, right? So that's what you need to do to practice that. And of course, you need to track all of this, right? So that's how I would do it. I would every buy and sell from from the crypto exchange, it would give me an indicator of what's my average, right? So you just kind of look at the average and decide, okay, am I decreasing my average whenever me buying low, right? And then me selling high. So over a period of time, you'll be able to see that, you know what, your average is at this price point. And what you want to do is continuously treat Bitcoin as a little bank of yours, right? So have that in mind that, you know, you might not want to access the money from Bitcoin all the time. However, you want to utilize it as a little bank to build wealth, to save, and to cash out when it's appropriate, right? Okay, let me park my car here. I'll be really quick. Before I finish, I just want to, you know, manage your expectation a little bit, right? Yes, we do see a lot of greatness, liquidity coming back. But for now, it simply doesn't mean Bitcoin will hit its another all-time high immediately, right? It does seem currently 107,000 to 108,000, that's the key resistance. And we need to go through that, right? However, before we get past 107 or 108,000 USD Bitcoin resistance, there's still a CME gap of around 104,000, right? That needs to be covered before we can get back to 107 or 108, right? What essentially means by Bitcoin CME gap, right? Super simple. Imagine a price chart for Bitcoin futures on the CME, so a big US exchange, right? So the CME is closed on weekdays and holidays, right? And we usually see a huge movement, like we always call it the weekend pump, right, for Bitcoin. And Bitcoin pump, it's usually 24/7, so it keeps trading 24/7, and because there's a difference, there's a CME gap, right? So if Bitcoin price jumps or crash while CME is closed, essentially when CME opens again, the chart kind of skip a chunk of the price, right? And that skip is actually called a CME gap, right? So currently we have a gap at around 104,000 US dollar for Bitcoin. And very likely, right, with how Bitcoin is trending right now at 105K, I think it will go back to fill that gap first, right? So that's something that you might want to take into consideration for today, right? It's not all doom and glooms. Very likely there's a CME gap that needs to be filled, but at the same time, there are things that we do look forward to. November, December, you know, usually Bitcoin rally, 2K Trump check. Third one is US government opening up soon. Fourth one, it's the rate cut confirmed for December. The fifth things, QT stops on 1st of December with QE starts, quantitative easing starts on January 2026. So that's definitely something to take into consideration, right? So I think that's it for now, and I'll chat to you soon. Yes, please hit the like, subscribe. If you like the content, please subscribe, please hit the like, okay? And I'll speak to you soon. Thanks, bye.